Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to not only a very important match today, but one of the first matches in our Summertime Madness event. This is day one. We have 2 more days to go, but before we get there, we start off big with our TV Fights Championship. Here we have 2 contenders, one defending, one challenging, and this is going to be a very not just tough, but impressive match no matter who comes out the end. We'll go ahead and introduce our competitors first. We're going to go ahead and start with the current champion with a record of 4-0. He is the undisputed TV Fights champion, Joe Farrelly. Joe, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well. Oh, I do like hearing those words. But Ethan is, I've watched his match. He's a hell of a competitor. So I've got my work cut out for me tonight. But apart from nerd fights, I am undefeated across every debate, league, movie, battleground in here. So I'm hoping to keep up that record.
All right, but the man looking to ruin that record, he enters with a record of 3-1 with 2 knockouts on that record as well. He is the electric Ethan Klein. Ethan, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm excited to be here. I was telling you guys kind of off camera behind the scenes that I didn't really know if I was going to be able to compete in TV fights because it is just such a vast league, but made it here, kind of turned it on after that first loss, and ready to rock and roll.
All right, but I'm not the only one that's here because I just don't want to do the work. We have 3 different judges here that are here to make the correct decisions and make sure the correct person comes out at the end. We'll go ahead and go to our first judge, Mr. Kevin Poss. Kevin, how are we doing?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on. I know both of these guys very well, and especially in the debate leagues. Ethan and I just had a number 1 contenders match to see who was going to play in this match. Obviously, you see who won. Congrats to him, and to Joe. I have seen you play, and I know what to expect there. So this is going to be a hot match, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
All right, we move on to our second judge. As I have been told, he is a man, a myth, and a legend, and he is here tonight, Mr. JB3. How are we doing?
How's it going? Yes, it's me. It's JB3, and I'm here to judge another match in late TV fights. This is probably my favorite league to judge because, I mean, who doesn't want to sit back late night and watch some TV? I'm going to grab my bucket of popcorn. I'm going to open up my ears. You better bring it, guys.
All right, and then we move on to introduce our third and final judge. Apologies if I mispronounce the name, Miss Andrea Malabag. And Andrea, how are we doing?
Pronunciation was not bad. It was actually quite good. Hello, everyone. This is my first TV fight, but I have been a judge for debates in other sections of the TV. So this is going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see who gets the win. And to both competitors, I wish you the best of luck. Let's do this thing.
All right, and so before we begin, I'll take a quick second to read the rules. Not that anyone here should know the rules, but it never hurts to remind them as we go ahead and bring our 2 competitors in. So as both our competitors know, they were given their questions prior to the fight, and they've had the time to prepare their answers. For each of the 5 rounds we will play today in this championship match, each competitor will get a 90-second opening, 5 minutes of open debate, and 60 seconds to then close out the match. The players do have a 1-minute extension to use on any one opening or closing to a round. All they'll have to do before they speak is say they want to use it, and that time will be given to them. Remember, for the fighters, you guys are encouraged to introduce your topics in your opening and try not to counteract before the debate begins, and to recap your arguments within the closing. Try not to introduce too much new information if possible. For our judges, at the end of each fight, they will be given a quick amount of time to make their decision based off the debate and give their answers. They'll reveal their answers one by one to the panel. And remember, you guys can explain your answers, but please keep it as short as possible. Because this is a championship match, as I said before, we will be playing 5 normal debate questions. The speed round will not be a problem for these guys today. Any more questions? Or are we ready to begin?
Do it.
All right, and so with that, we go ahead and move on to question number 1. And this is a show from, I believe, Amazon Prime that was very, very successful for them. And it's a very basic question about the show. What is the best season of Bosch? And for that, Joe is going to answer this question first. So we're going to go ahead and go to him for his 90-second opening. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Bosch is a great series, and while it struggled to find its place and its footing during its first season, it started to really come into its own with season 2, and grew even more in season 3. But season 4 is the best season of Bosch. It's when the show reached the peak of what it could be. All that potential finally realised in what was an incredible season of television. What followed with seasons 5 and 6 wasn't necessarily a step down from that, but it always felt as though the showrunners and the writers knew that season 4 was perfect, and they've done what they could to emulate that. What we got were 2 really good seasons, but they always felt like they lived in the shadows of season 4. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 felt like you're serving up that baseball. Season 4 is when you hit it and you knock it out of the park. Seasons 5 and 6, that baseball's gone back up in the air, and we're waiting to see whether they can hit it out of the park again. And that's why I believe season 4 is the best, and I'll go to more in my 5 minutes.
All right, quick and easy intro there. We'll go ahead and go to Ethan for his 90-second opening when he speaks.
So what made Bosch such a great show is due to a huge part to its lead character, the titular Harry Bosch, and why he's such a successful character is because of this intensity that he brings to the role, his ferocity that he has as a character. And what season 5 does is it takes the groundwork that the first 4 seasons have built of this character that we've come to know, and it changes up his character in multiple different ways. It sends him undercover. It makes him become a different person. He has to, in some ways, take steps back from that intensity because he can't just go in guns blazing to a situation like he would like to. And also with some of the side stories that go on in season 5, he has to be more humble, have some humility, both with his daughter and with previous adversaries in the form of defense attorney Honey Chandler, who he has to go to for help. He doesn't like to ask anyone for help, let alone someone who works on the opposite side of the law from him, but that's the situation that he finds himself in. And what this show does is such a good job of weaving these different, there is a main storyline, but there's also these side stories. And while other seasons have dropped the ball in some ways and not put enough emphasis on these side stories or not found just the right way to tie them in, this season does such a good job of reminding you there's this thing going on over here, but this is still the important through line. They tie it together perfectly, and what ties it together perfectly is what they ask Titus Welliver to do with the character. He doesn't just have to be Harry Bosch, the main poster guy.
Time on the opening. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move into the main round. As always, you guys will have 5 minutes to debate. Time starts when the first person begins speaking.
The good thing about season 4 is the storyline that it hits you with. It has a side storyline, the same as season 5 does, but season 4, even now, is incredibly a relevant storyline. It's about the murder of a high-profile black lawyer who was investigating police brutality. And so from that minute, the stakes are high. And it weaves that fascinating story, not only with loose threads from previous seasons 1, 2, and 3. But it also gives us an incredibly satisfying conclusion to one of the biggest things about the show, which was the murder of Bosch's mother. Everything about season 4, it's the Avengers Endgame of Bosch. It ties everything together perfectly. Season 5, it's Spider-Man Homecoming. It's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's setting up. It's a setup series for what's coming next after everything that was tied up in season 4.
I would actually say that the way that they conclude the murder of Harry Bosch's mother isn't Avengers Endgame, it's Matrix Revolutions, because the idea that this man committed this murder years and years and years ago, and then, he so conveniently happened to also murder this prominent black lawyer in LA, and Bosch happened to get put on the case. It just felt very matter of fact. It didn't feel like a true organic story. And really, the twist was given away from the opening moment of the season. You knew that at the end of season 3, he was going to go on this vendetta tour to find the man that killed his mom. And he openly said, I think it's this guy. And then suddenly at the beginning of season 4, he's stalking him. He's trying to follow him. And this murder happens just down the street. It was painfully obvious from the beginning that that's where they were going. And it took the suspense out of the 10-episode journey.
Not necessarily. No, the thing is, like you said, with season 5, you said it changed it up and it built on the groundwork, and it was a new take. The thing is, with so many cop shows, you are with the main cop, the main detective, about this investigation, trying to figure it out, and you are like that with the side stories. But here, it throws you ahead, and because you've had that groundwork built from seasons 1, 2, and 3 about knowing this character, it's much more interesting because you know, and now you're going to find out him getting into it, and that's what's interesting. Season 5. It's throwing that ball in the air. We don't know whether they're going to hit it yet. Look at Lost. Look at the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. The setup was great, and despite how I feel about how those things ended, the critical and the majority didn't like the way those things paid off. One of the key elements of season 5 is the development with Bosch's daughter Maddie. In season 5, they're now living and working together. It's an interesting dynamic, but it's something new. It's a jumping off point, and it's something we're going to see develop over multiple seasons. And I think that's the defining thing of season 5. It's not that it's poorly written or the stories aren't as interesting as season 4. It's just that after so many stories were concluded with such impeccable skill at the end of season 4, the writers need to give us something new to invest in, and it's a jumping off point.
I'm glad that you brought up his daughter, Maddie, because I think that is one of the key reasons why season 5 is better than season 4, with those side stories involving her. In season 4, her mother is killed, gunned down in a drive-by shooting. This should be such an incredibly emotional moment and such an opportunity for those two characters to grow together, and it's very quickly glossed over. And actually, at the end of season 4, they hint at maybe her boss was a dirty cop that could have been involved in it, and then the storyline is just dropped. Why? They didn't want to keep diving back into that because I think they looked back and saw that they fumbled it to begin with. So what they do is they give us the emotional beats of Maddie and Bosch with him going undercover, not communicating with her, and then they actually have growth in their relationship, and she later does show sacrifice for her father. She actually offers up the opportunity to lose the internship that she strived for in the DA's office because she wants to help her dad. That's actual growth in that character, whereas what we saw in season 4 was an opportunity for growth that was just unrealized with what should have been such a big moment, and they just moved on 2 episodes later.
But I think that's the thing you're missing here, because that's the thing about Bosch. There's still that unsolved element of the murder of his mother, and that's what we're getting to in season 4. And in season 5, you still feel the effects from that because of all the build-up work and all the ground that was laid from season 4. It still solves so much. It gives you so many resolutions to so many storylines, but it does it in a way that feels satisfying. I'm sorry if you don't feel they resonated for you, but the critical acclaim for season 4 is immense. There's half of the season is rated above a 9.0. The other half, the lowest, is an 8.8. Season 5 on IMDb, you look at the ratings. There's not much difference. Your lowest is an 8.4. It's not bad, but the critical acclaim of season 5 compared to season 4, there is a difference. And so I think saying that it didn't resonate as well, I think that's more of a problem for you rather than what's a critical issue of how they manage these gargantuan tasks of tying all these loose ends and giving all such a satisfying conclusion.
I mean, the question is, what's the best? And to me, the best means that you hit every single part of it out of the park. You said it was a home run. I don't think it was. They had this huge, big bad, and they wasted him. There's not enough interaction between him and Bosch. And when it finally is an interaction, it falls very flat because you knew from the beginning, this is how they're going to make him the bad guy. That is going to be
time on the 5 minutes. You guys are each going to get a 1-minute closing argument. Ethan, you get to go first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So again, like I said, season 5, the reason that it's amazing is because it stretches the character that we've met in the first 4 seasons. He has to be humble. He has to ask one of his previous adversaries, Honey Chandler, who he cannot stand, for help to defend himself in this side case, someone questioning his integrity, which is something that's brought up throughout the show. But we actually see there is suspense in this season. Is Bosch a bad guy? Did he do some dirty things to put someone behind bars? Can we investigate this? What can we learn about Harry Bosch? We actually feel that suspense in that side story, and when he's undercover having to become a different person. That suspense is lost in season 4. Why? Because they just hand it to you. Hey, we need to find a way for this bad guy to be even worse. Oh, look, there's this murder. It takes the suspense out of the show. It takes the suspense out of what should have been so huge. Who killed Bosch's mom? It falls flat. It can't be the best if they don't hit a home run on the most important storyline. Season 5 hits the reset button and gives us that suspense and that character work that we need from Harry Bosch.
And that is time on the minute. We'll go ahead and move to Joe.
what we've seen from numerous shows over the years, look at Lost, look at Dexter, look at How I Met Your Mother, look at Heroes, is that it's easier to lay a lot of groundwork, create intrigue and mystery, but to wrap up those mysteries, to satisfy the audience's appetite for closure in a satisfying manner is a lot harder. Season 4 does this, and it does it without the real big bells and whistles, but while still telling its own story. Season 5 takes what Season 4 did and lays that groundwork, knowing that it can build to another great conclusion. I think that's the mantra now of the showrunners. Let's emulate what Season 4 did. You say it killed the suspense, but it didn't. It's still the highest rated series. I think just because it didn't land for you doesn't mean it didn't land for everyone. And that's the thing. You say it killed the suspense by revealing it. It didn't, because you knew it, but you know who Bosch is, and you know how you want to see how he's actually going to handle it. That's where the suspense comes from, not from solving the mystery, but from how he's going to handle it. And you say yours stretches the character. The problem with stretching a character that's established over 4 seasons is that some people aren't going to like it, and it's going to divide a lot more than when you try to wrap up a mystery. And I think that's the difference there. Seasons 5 and 6 are trying to emulate the success of Season 4, and that's the main thing here. Season 4 wrapped up so many storylines, and it did it perfectly. And Season 5,
and that's going to be time. That's going to be time on the minute-long closing. It was a good round from both competitors. Pete, guys, let me know when you are ready. I will say, as someone who has never seen Bosch, what I took from that round was, how dare you take a shot at How I Met Your Mother. I actually just rewatched it. It's not perfect, but... All right, Andrea's ready. Kevin, I see you writing. Ready? All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to Kevin first.
All right. So good round by both. I also have not had the chance to see Bosch yet, so I had to go off of what I heard from the competitors. I'll keep it short. Ethan gave me a lot of information about the show, a lot of deep stuff, like, for instance, about how Maddie's story showing growth, the wasting of the big bad in season 4, taking the suspense out of season 4 with the murder story. I don't feel like Joe had the comeback for that, so my point to Ethan. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. My internet sucks. We'll go ahead and move on to our second judge, Mr. JB3. What do you have to say for this round?
Man, first off, before I say anything about the round, I want to say also, yes, I agree about How I Met Your Mother, and I watched it like 10 times through. I totally agree. Don't hate on How I Met Your Mother. Now, this round was, I'm going to go ahead and say it, this was the best round I've ever judged to this date. It was the most competitive. I mean, everything back and forth. The only thing that got me to get my point where it was the ratings. When that was brought up and everything was said and done, that was, to me, won me over, the ratings. So I gave it to Joe.
All right, so we're tied for the round, going to our third judge. Andrea, where does your vote go towards?
In this case, it was actually really back and forth. They were really, really going at it. This is the best debate I've heard in any league so far. But at the end of the day, it was actually, what really compelled me was it all came down to me to the concluding arguments. And when, what really got to me was when Joe said that not many could stick the landing of a particular storyline. And in this case, the season 4, he said, was basically the wrapping up of storylines from between seasons 1 to 3 and 4. So I would have to give my point to Joe on this one.
All right, and so with that, Joe is going to get the first point for this round.
Case in point, I like the finale of How I Met Your Mother. My point was about how it was critically received.
I like you a little more. All right, so we'll go ahead and bring Ethan back. Joe pisses the internet off. He gets the first point of this match, and we're going to go ahead and move into round number 2 for these guys. This fight is far from over, but something that has been over for a long time is what a lot of people would consider one of the top sitcoms, Scrubs, and so that leads us to our second question. What Scrubs character would be the most fun to hang out with in real life? And we are going to move on to our 90-second openings. Ethan is going to open this round up first. The time will start when you begin speaking.
So for me, when this question got asked, I just wanted to think about who's going to put me at ease. Who do I want to hang out with the most? And for me, it was a very simple answer. It was the lead character, JD. When I've watched Scrubs, when I've sat back and watched this show, for me, the antics of it are obviously so wild and so insane. But what his character has always done for me when I've watched the show is grounded it for me. It's brought me out of the insanity in a lot of ways, listening to him talk, listening to him communicate with the people around him. And it's given me an opportunity when watching the show to kind of take a breath, to kind of take a break and enjoy some of the more heartfelt moments in the show. And I think if I'm going to hang out with someone, I want that too, because life in and of itself can get crazy, can get eccentric in a lot of ways. And to just be able to sit back and to hang out with someone who can give you that, who can take that step back with you, who can just kind of relax and just kind of give a broad understanding of kind of the craziness around you. I would appreciate that. And I think for me, that would be the most fun person to hang out with would be JD. And I'll concede the rest of my time.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to Joe. Your 90 seconds starts when you begin speaking.
So Scrubs has created a lot of incredible characters. It gave us people we loved, we hated, loved to hate. In the 8, and yeah, that's right, I said 8 seasons. It was on TV for. They followed the staff of Sacred Heart Hospital. We laughed at their ridiculousnesses. We cried when they cried. But since the show went off the air, there have been opinion changes, changes in opinions, like you have with anything when viewed through. When you view things through a more modern lens, you can identify problematic attributes in characters and shows. But one thing that's remained consistent from the pilot to now is that Christopher Duncan Turk is a cool guy, a good friend, and just someone that is a genuine pleasure to be around. I can't think of anyone better to spend a day hanging out with, shooting the shit, having a good time with. He's just brilliant. He's a loyal friend. He's always shown it. He's much more grounded than JD. He's a fantastic character and someone that is just going to be a genuine pleasure to hang out with, whether it's going to be for a fun time or for a more heartfelt time. I think Turk is the best choice. I can see my time.
All right, and so with that, we're going to go ahead and move into our 5 minutes on the match. The 5 minutes will begin when the first person speaks.
The problem with JD, I think he's incredibly self-centered. We've seen it from season 1. Because of his voiceovers, we know how he sees the world. He's a doctor. He does care if something goes wrong, but it's more sometimes when something goes wrong for him. And that's his biggest problem in the world. You know, Elliot's confidence issues, Turk's relationship problems, Dr. Cox's drinking, anything like that, they all take a back seat to JD's problems. And that's the problem you're going to have when you hang out with JD, is that whatever you want to deal with, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about, it's going to take a back seat to JD.
See, I mean, so just from the show itself, I mean, we're watching JD's story. He's the main character. He has the voiceover. We're seeing his world through his lens. So him explaining that to us doesn't mean he's self-centered. It's what we sign up for when we watch the show. That's the point of the show. What I see in his voiceovers, what I hear, what I'm watching him experience is life in and of itself. He is going through all of this. He's handling all of the craziness that all of the people around him bring, and he's giving his take on it, his honest to God opinion on it. And that's what I want when I hang out with someone. If I'm going through something, I'm going to talk to them about it. I'm going to bring them my stuff. One, I want them to be experienced so that the opinion they're giving me actually means something. It's not just, well, I've never been here, but here's this. And I want it to be blatantly honest. And he gives me both of those things time and again throughout the series.
No, Turk's going to be the blatantly honesty one. The majority of that show was when, the thing is, you say it's in 3 and 3 years, so it's not necessarily self-centered. A lot of the episodes involved other characters like Elliot, Dr. Cox, and Turk telling him you need to look at this problem from somebody else's point of view. The thing about when you hang around with Turk, the possibilities are endless about what you can do. The thing is, whatever you do with him, he will engage and he will do it with passion, whether it's playing sports, going to a bar, performing in an air band, whatever it is. We want to talk about Star Wars, you want to talk about sports. He drove JD around all night and got forced up into a tree by a coyote just so JD could have a chance with Dr. Molly Clock. He wore a beard of bees to keep Elliot distracted while the other characters tried to help her out of the situation she created for herself. The man is loyal. He's tormented the janitor just to give JD a break. Think about hanging around with JD. All it's going to take is one innocuous comment from you. It's going to send him doing this into a daydream for 2 minutes, and you're going to be sitting there like, oh, what do I do now? And then he's going to come back, make a comment that you won't understand because you don't know what's been going on in his head, and then it's back to whatever the hell JD wanted to do in the first place.
I mean, so basically what you're saying is if I hang out with Turk, I'm signing up for God knows what. We have no idea what's going to happen. I could be the one that ends up in a tree with a coyote. I could have a bunch of bees chasing after me. I don't want that. I don't need that kind of insanity. His character exemplifies the insanity of the world that the show is set in. When he comes in and out, there too comes the craziness around him. And I don't always want that level of craziness in my life. It's great for a show. It's great in the setting of the show. But when I'm in the real world and experiencing my own real life issues, I don't want someone who is going to exemplify those issues. I want someone who's going to sit back and just have a conversation with me about those issues. Who's just going to go through those things with me, not necessarily add to those by going to an extreme level with his passion, with his craziness. That makes him a good character on the show. But does that make him someone that I really want to be around when I'm experiencing those things? I don't think so.
No, absolutely no. Turk has always been a great friend. Like I said, he got in that situation with the coyote because of JD dragging him into it. He got kicked by an ostrich because JD dragged him into a situation. The thing is, Turk is a loyal friend. He has 4 separate numbers on his cell phone for Elliot home, Elliot cell, Elliot home, Elliot work, and Elliot's parents in case I can't get hold of Elliot. This is the point about Turk. He is loyal. He is a loyal friend, and that's what you want. And he will. So you might be doing what he wants to do, but you might be doing what you want to do. That's the thing. He's a sharer. He's genuine. He's shown that with Carla in his relationship. He's shown it with JD in his friendship. He is a giver, but he also enjoys just spending time with other people. And he comes from such a quirky group. He has the nerdy moments with JD, but he also has the jockey moments with the other surgeons. There is a plethora of options for when you hang out, and also he's not afraid to give those hard-hitting truths when he needs to.
I think there's a difference sometimes between loyal and overwhelming, and someone having 4 different phone numbers for me because they can't get a hold of me on the first one at times would be a little too much for me. I don't need someone trying to contact me 4 different ways. If you contact me, I'll contact you back. Let me have that. I don't always need someone who is just bringing every ounce of intensity they have, because sometimes life is crazy, life is intense, and I don't need that extra ounce of it just coming in with the person I'm hanging out with. Sometimes when I hang out with someone, I want to just relax, I want to just chill, and you're never going to get that with Turk because he brings so much passion, because he just has to be all in, all right there. It's just going to add to the craziness of life. JD is going to allow you the opportunity to literally just hang out.
And that's going to be time on the 5 minutes. We're going to go ahead and move to our 1 minute closings. Joe, you're going to go first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
When it comes to friendship, Turk is the embodiment of a good friend. He cares, he's not afraid to have the tough talks, he's fun, he's independent, and he's passionate about so much that conversation is easy. By hanging out with Turk, you're both guaranteed a great time. With JD, you're going to struggle. He'll be hanging out on his terms, doing what he wants to do, and you won't even have his full attention because he will get distracted by some kind of daydream, or something like a pretty girl, or a chance to impress Dr. Cox, or just him drifting off to one of his long fantasies. It's going to get old pretty fast, and it won't be long before you're setting him up for a fantasy that you can bail while he's distracted. That's what you're going to want to do. You say Turk's intense, but the show has shown that he has those intense moments, but he also has the much more grounded, much more real, whether it's just a quiet drink, whether it's just speaking from the heart to a patient. The thing about Turk is that he is the embodiment of what you want in a friend. Loyal, committed, passionate, relaxing. Everything about Turk is what you want from a friend. But JD, it's going to be a struggle. You're going to want to get out of there. He's not going to give you the full attention. He's going to get distracted. He is going to run.
That's going to be time on the minute closing. We're going to go ahead and flip to Ethan. 1 minute on the clock when you begin speaking.
What I want when I hang out with someone is someone who I can bring my life to, the things that are going on with me, and then have that conversation with them and know that what they've been through is actually going to be of value to me, that they're going to give back to me. Because of the setup of the show, because the show is JD's life, we hear those internal thoughts that he is having inside his mind. I know that he is able to take the craziness that all of these people, including Turk, bring to him, process it, and then have those honest conversation, those honest thoughts. That's what I'm going to ask of him. And I know because of the setup of the show that he's going to be able to do that for me. What Turk is going to bring to me is an insane amount of intensity that is only going to add to the stresses of life, that is just going to exemplify all of the things that I want to forget about when I literally just want to hang out with someone. All of the things that we see are constant. He's just bringing it over and over and over again, and sometimes that's too much. What you have in JD is someone who is going to relax with you, someone's going to have that conversation with you, and just move on with the day.
And that's going to be time on the closing. Guys, just be sure to let me know when you are ready.
Could I request for the question of this particular round again, please? I just want to make sure I have it right.
It is on the bottom of the screen, but the reading of it would be, what Scrubs character would be most fun to hang out with in real life? I feel like the craziest thing, as I rant to myself while they decide, is the fact that Scrubs has been off the air for, if not close, almost over 10 years, which is crazy to think about at this point. I feel like it would probably be 11 years if you're Joe and believe there's only 8 seasons of the show. So that's even crazier, right? But we've seen 2 good rounds from our competitors thus far, both showing that they deserve to be here on a championship level. I mean, we had, if not JB3 is ready, if not all 3, at least 2 of the 3 last round said that was the best debate they'd ever heard. So if you think this weekend can't get any better, you are correct. This is the best it's going to get. All right, are all 3 of our judges ready?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with JB3 this round. Who's your vote going to and why?
Man, again, like, I'm already just excited for the next 2 questions now, to be honest. Both of these guys brought it, and it was very down to the wire again. I was on one side the whole time until the ending, and the one who got the point won me over with their ending. They just doubled down on every point about, how it was his own narrative, and, how the other guy was too unpredictable. It was too overwhelming, so I gave my point, obviously, now, to Ethan. I had it pegged the whole way different, but he got me in that. That was probably one of the best closings, I gotta say, I've heard. So congratulations, good job.
All right, we'll move on to our second judge for this round. Andrea, where's your point going to?
I'm going to make this a little bit tough for Kevin because I'm giving my point to Joe just because I guess I lack adventure in my life. So if I was given a chance, I would like somebody who is also grounded, but he's also a loyal friend, but he also has this thing of adventurous streak to him. I guess that's what I'm looking for in a friend. So if I were given a choice, in this instance, I would have to go with Turk. So I'm giving my point to Joe.
All right, which means we will go to our third judge for his vote and the decider of this round.
I will keep this pretty quick. Ethan brought up some really good points about how JD grounds the craziness of the show, but Joe really brought the examples that I needed to hear in terms of talking about his loyalty, the way he's genuine. He's proven that in a romantic sense with Carla, as a friend with JD. He's not afraid to have the tough talks if needed. That's what you need in a friend. So my point is going to go to Joe.
All right, and so with that, Joe is going to take the second round. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move into the third round question. It is at this point, I will remind you guys, at this point, at a 2-0 score, Joe is within 1 point of winning the game. I'll also remind you guys again that you do have your 1 minute extension if you would prefer to use it on any opening or closing of your choice left for the game. With that, we'll go ahead and move into question number 3. And 2020 has been an absolutely crazy year. I don't think anyone will ever say it is not. It is one of the craziest things. If a goddamn zombie apocalypse happened, I think we just blink at it at this point. But one thing that has remained consistent is networks have canceled shows. Some deserved it, some didn't. And for the ones who didn't deserve to be canceled, we ask, what TV show that has been canceled within 2020 should be picked up by another network? And for this question, we are going to go first to Joe. Your 90-second opening begins when you begin speaking.
Cancelled too soon. Hashtag save, enter the name of your show here. It's a cry we've seen throughout the history of television, and especially now since the advent of the internet. And here we are with another round of cancellation. We've seen it yet again. However, out of the many shows that were cancelled in the latest round, especially shows that were cancelled after their first season, none have really justified the call to be brought back, like The Baker and The Beauty. A bit of background, this is a US version of an Israeli TV show. The US version focuses on a blue-collar baker from a Hispanic family that falls in love with an international superstar. It's a fantastically well-crafted show. It takes a premise that many movies and other shows have done over the years, but gives the relationship more time to grow, as it's done over a longer period of time than a movie. So many sitcoms seem too ridiculous and the characters feel more like caricatures than real people, but all the writing and performances are so grounded that it's believable and it's sweet. It really is a show that was cancelled too soon. The Israeli TV series lasted for 3 seasons. There was plenty of work that they could have done, plenty of direction for this story to go in, and it was incredibly successful in Israel. It was definitely cancelled too soon, especially when there aren't many shows out there with that focus on a Hispanic family. And I'll concede my time.
All right, and so with that, we'll go ahead and move over to Ethan. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So for me, when I read this question, I wanted what I looked at was what show needed to be picked up by another network, because the network it had dropped the ball with the premise they were given. And to me, no show exemplifies that more than Deputy, which was on Fox. Now, Fox, their shows do try to lean a little more intense than other just basic the main channels, but it's still your basic network television, and with a premise that I think had some legs. You know, this idea of this guy who did not want to be a politician. He was off the reservation a bit in terms of law enforcement because of some technicalities, gets forced into the sheriff's office of LA County, and now he has to balance who he is, how he acts with something that is a political office. They had a really good cast. Stephen Dorff is fantastic. We saw what he can do with a long leash on a show like True Detective, and I think that's what he needs, what he needed to make this character in this show peak the way it could have. So Fox would never allow them to do the things that they needed to have the intensity of a city like LA, intense things that we've seen in shows like Bosch that we talked about earlier. They need more rope with what they were doing. Instead, it was drowned in network television babble. They were never able to dive deep enough politically, violently, vocally. That's what this show needed. They had the premise.
And that is going to be time on the 90 seconds. Gentlemen, your 5 minutes will begin when the first person begins speaking.
Deputy needed to be cancelled, man. It's another procedural cop show. Oh, but it has a twist. It's a premise that's been done to death. I know it's important to have these conversations. It's raising conversations, but it's nothing that hasn't been raised by Bosch or Brooklyn Nine-Nine. On the day I was looking into this, there were 550 tweets with the hashtag Save Baker and the Beauty, including Kerry Washington. And it's because, and the simple reason is, representation matters. No one's tweeted about Deputy since April, okay? It falls into the category of doing what so many other shows have done before it. It's nothing new. You're saying that it wasn't the show's fault, it was the network it was on, but that's the show it presented us with. Stephen Dorff's going to find other work without issue. He can pull his acting chops out in another place.
I mean, I would say that 550 tweets doesn't make a real big movement in my eyes. And here's the thing. You say that Baker and the Beauty has never been done before. Well, it has been done before because it's a remake of a different television show. And what it is, when they bring in the Hispanic element, it's a telenovela that has been shown for decades. They're just speaking English, and it's on an American network. It is a retread of so many things that have been done culturally, and the story in and of itself. It's, you know, the poorer person meets the richer person. Can their lives come together? We've seen it before. We've seen a lot of cop shows before, but the premise itself of this off-the-reservation lawman moving into a political office, how is he going to handle that? And then Fox, because of their network obligations, never allowed us to see the deeper, darker sides of it when that premise itself offers that up. Moving to a new network would add so much to the show. Moving to a new network wouldn't add anything to Baker and the Beauty. They would just continue out the story that the Israeli TV show set them up for.
I mean, an off-the-reservation lawman being put into a world of violence sounds a little bit like Deadwood to me. But with Baker and the Beauty, it's a premise that's finally given room to grow. You say it's been done before in other movies and stuff, but the thing is, because it's got more than 90 minutes to tell its story, and with that incredibly successful Israeli TV show to feed off of, it's clear that there is plenty of story still to tell. What you're describing is a show that was done poorly, and it's a good premise that needs to be redone by a new network. So probably start again from scratch. But the difference is, with Baker and the Beauty, it has that story to tell. It still has that story to tell, and more importantly, it has an audience that hasn't seen its representation in a story like this in the mainstream. I know it's out over there in Israel, but culturally, and especially in the US with shows like this, it needs to have that representation much more mainstream, and that is what Baker and the Beauty is. But it's not just the fact of having this representation, it's the fact that you've got that story to tell. It has the story as well as the representation, and that is what goes hand in hand. That's what makes it a show that needs to be brought back and needs to be uncancelled.
So, I mean, I would say that the better way to do representation would be to have a show that actually lives in the community that it's representing. Having an American network tell an Americanized version of a Hispanic family story stolen from an Israeli show doesn't really seem like true to heart representation to me. It seems like something that TV shows do all the time. Hey, this worked over there in Israel. Let's do our spin on it. And now that the show's canceled, if you want to know how it ends, go watch the Israeli version. The premise that's set up in Deputy, we don't know how that ends. We don't know what this man's journey is, what his life is, what it's going to be from the political side of things, from the actual law enforcement side of things. There would be an opportunity if another network that has a lot more rope to deal with to go into more of the deeper issues that would follow with that premise, we can actually see how that plays out. We know how Baker and the Beauty plays out because it's a remake of another show.
But you don't know how it plays out because it hasn't had that thing in the mainstream. And you can talk about an Americanized versions. Asi Azar, Dean Jajorius, Albert Torres, Valentina Garza, Terence Colley. You know, these are the, Christina Quintana. These are the people who are writing this show. It's not an Americanized version. It is being told from the perspectives of people who have lived in that, who they are representing. It may be shown on an American network, but the people who are working on that show, the people who are behind that show, they come from these cultures. The thing is, you say it has a story to tell that's been shown on another way. Like I said, it hasn't been seen in the mainstream. Politicalizing police, showing this off the reservation lawman. It's been done. The political version. You've seen it in Bosch. We've seen it in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You know, you say 500. You said those 550 tweets. Didn't really make a dent. But compared to Deputy, it's 550 more. So then that's what it has. It has the audience for it. It has the need for it.
I mean, again, my thing is not who out there agrees with me or not. This is an argument right here that we fully believe in, and I fully believe that there's more story to tell in an original premise of an original show. Yes, there's other
and that is going to be time on the 5-minute debate. You guys are each going to get 1 minute of closing. Ethan, there we go.
Yes, there's been other cop shows. No, this exact show has never been told. This exact story has never been told. What we have seen from the actors in the show, all of the actors that play main parts in this show, Steven Dorff being the lead man that does this, he peaks when he is able to be as intense as humanly possible with his ability. We've seen it in True Detective. We've seen it as a villain in Blade. When he has that, basically that R rating, and he can go to that next level, that's when we see the best out of him. And I want to give the people in the show the best opportunity to peak, and that network Fox did not have that ability. Baker and the Beauty, if you move it to a different network, it's the exact same thing that we saw. It's what they took from the Israeli show, and we don't see anything new. We can see new things from this premise with this group of people, with these actors that we have not seen before. Yes, there's other cop shows. There's going to be more cop shows. There has not been this cop show. Beauty and the Baker in and of itself has happened before. It will happen again because somebody will want to adapt that story again.
And that's going to be time on the minute closing. We're going to go ahead and move over to Joe to finish us out. 1 minute when you speak.
I said in this argument that representation matters, but it's not just that you are being represented, it's that you're being represented in the right way and in a new, different and intriguing ways. The Baker and the Beauty is a story for everyone. It has characters that everyone can fall in love with, it can get interested in, but the difference is a section of that audience get to see themselves represented, not as stereotypes or background characters, but as real people. Deputy is a new twist on an old premise, but it doesn't say anything new. Steven Dorff can get work. He'll get work without issue. And what you said is that it's not the show that needs redoing. It's the premise is fine, but the show needs redoing. So basically, it's not being uncancelled. It's starting again from scratch. With Baker and the Beauty, it has a story to tell, which has been established by the Israeli series, but needs to be told in the mainstream. And that's why the show needs to be uncancelled. That's why the show shouldn't have been cancelled. The premise for Deputy is fine, but it wasn't executed properly, which is why it was cancelled. That's the difference. That's why Baker and the Beauty shouldn't have been cancelled, and Deputy should have been.
And that's going to be time on the round. Another great round of debate from the judges. Be sure to let me know when you guys are finished. So because I have time to kill, JB3 is finished. I want to go ahead and draw attention to the brilliant work that these other networks are doing. While these two shows have been canceled, I want to specifically take a minute to shout out CBS that have done amazing things like allow NCIS to collectively have 37 seasons. Great job, guys. Keep it up. They've also allowed Chuck Lorre to have almost 30 years of television consistently. And one of those shows is a show called Bob Hart's Abishola, which somehow survived despite being a show that should have been written in 2002 and claims to be progressive now. You guys are doing a great job. Please keep it up. Our judges, are we getting any closer after I've just pissed off a whole network? Kevin is ready. And Andrea is ready. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with Andrea on this round. Who is your vote going to, and very briefly, why?
Okay, this is actually, I guess this is the best one I've heard. Even better than the first round debate. And this is actually quite tough to decide because it's a factor of two things for me. The first one is that The Baker and the Beauty was came from an Israeli movie, an Israeli TV show, and then the other one is another cop show. So those are the 2 points they were mainly arguing. But at the end of the day, I think I would have to give my point to Ethan because of the fact that there might be a little more leeway when it comes to storytelling, which would make it more interesting to be brought back to TV than Joe's answer. So I'm going to give my point to Ethan in this one.
All right, so then we'll go ahead and move on to Kevin for his vote.
What it came down to, Andrew is absolutely correct that this was probably the toughest one so far. What it came down to for me is the fact that one competitor brought up that it is a simple remake, and it would have to follow that storyline. It was rebutted by being it could be restarted as a fresh story. But what really sold me was the representation matters, and it's not just being represented, it's being represented in the right way. Obviously, Joe saying that the writers of the show have connections or are a part of, that community that right for the baker and the beauty. So in short, my point is going to go to Joe for this one.
All right, which means we send it to JB3 for the deciding vote on this round.
Oh, this keeps happening to me. Yeah, I thought the other two were a little bit closer for me. I kind of had my answer a little bit quicker. Both brought their game. Both were very knowledgeable in their both areas, really. But the competitor I chose just gave more examples of why his show could be restarted and actually work versus the examples of why the other one would not. And with that being said, my point goes to Ethan.
All right, and with that, Ethan is going to pick up his first point of the game. And that question is one that stretches a very broad spectrum of television, but what would we expect anything less in a championship fight? The question is, who is the greatest TV villain of all time? And for this one, we are going to go to Ethan first. Your minute and a half starts when you begin speaking.
So as soon as I saw this question, I had my answer in an instant, and I had it so fast it kind of scared me because I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. But it was Cersei Lannister in a heartbeat for me, because this woman for a decade, it's 8 seasons, but time that they spent filming for a decade, was my most hated person in the world, and she was a fictional character. She is the epitome of villainy and evil, and she does it in so many different ways. Yes, she does get her own hands dirty, but she is such a manipulator of the people around her. She causes so many terrible, evil things to happen. The Red Wedding, just even the opening episode. Yes, Jaime is the one that pushes the child out of the window, but it's because he knows that Cersei is wanting him to do that. She is pulling all of the strings time and again just to advance herself and her name so that she can eventually be on that throne. She does not do it for anybody else's gain. She does all of these just evil, vile things for herself, and worse and worse and worse. But here's the thing. She's still a great character. She's not a mustache twirling villain that's evil for the sake of evil. She does have her reasons that she does get the opportunities to explain, and she does go through some terrible things, maybe deserved for the kind of person she is, but the performance that is given to us makes us horrified at all of the surroundings of this person.
And that is going to be time on the opening statements. We're going to go ahead and move over to Joe. Minute and a half starts when you begin speaking.
What makes a great villain? They need to be evil, but believably evil. They need to be ruthless. They need to be relentless, and they have to scare you. Now, I chose a villain for nearly 60 years has sent adults and children cowering behind the sofa, has sent the normally confident and carefree hero of our show into a world of fear. A villain you don't even need to see to get a chill down your spine. All it takes is that 4-syllable killer catchphrase, exterminate. That's right, I have chosen the Daleks. First appearing on our screens in 1963's The Mutants. They have been the definition of evil ever since. They have one purpose and one purpose only: kill anything that isn't a Dalek. They are the ultimate weapon in racial cleansing, and nothing is more evil than unfiltered, unjustified hatred. And that is what the Daleks are. They are pure evil. They are pure hatred. And that is why they are the greatest villain of all television. And I can see my time.
All right, and so with that, we're going to go ahead and begin round number 4. The 5 minutes starts on the clock when the first person speaks.
I'm glad that you said unjustified, ruthless hatred of anything not a Dalek. That's exactly what Cersei Lannister is. It's just anyone who is not her or her children. And what she is willing to do to people who would be willing to work with her, work beside her, she does not care. She will kill at a moment's notice just because she feels like she wants to or because she feels like she has to. The Daleks are a mindless horde, a group that move in and out of Doctor Who. Cersei Lannister, from the moment she steps on screen to the final episode, is the most evil person that exists in that universe. Time and time again, she is who we are going to fear the most. She is not a reoccurring villain. She is the villain of the entire series.
Daleks may be a reoccurring villain, but they are the villain of the series. Let's think about Cersei Lannister for a second. As a young girl, she was told that she would become queen and outlive her children. Bound by duty and loyalty to her family, she must marry. She was forced to marry into royalty. Just imagine the complicated mixture of joy and sadness each birth must have caused her, knowing that she was going to outlive every single one of her children. Cersei is not a villain. She is the misguided hero of her own story. Game of Thrones introduced us to the caring Ned Stark, lovable Jon Snow, and the caring Daenerys Targaryen. Of course, we're going to see Cersei as the villain, but in the end, she was right. Daenerys Targaryen burnt King's Landing to the ground. Cersei may have gone about things the wrong way, but she didn't kill at a moment's notice whenever she felt like it. She gave Ned Stark a chance. She tried to negotiate with him, and it failed. She didn't even want him killed. It was Joffrey that had Ned Stark killed. Cersei is the victim of her own story. And she was right.
She didn't want Ned Stark killed at that exact moment. She was definitely willing to kill Ned Stark whenever needed. She just wanted a little more leverage for Sansa, so that Sansa would then bear her grandchildren, so to keep her lineage going. Don't mistake her emotions in that moment for saying that she wanted to spare Ned Stark. And the false chance that she gave him was to portray everything that he knew and bend a knee to her, not to her son. She never treated her son as a true king. She treated her son as a placeholder, just as she treated the husband she was forced to marry. The way I see it, she was happy to do that because it got her one step closer to that throne. She orchestrated the murder of everybody at a wedding just to advance herself a little bit more. And then she later killed thousands of people at a moment's notice using the dragon's fire to blow up a good portion of a city that she claimed to care about and love, that same city that Daenerys later burned. So was she right about Daenerys being bad? Yes, but sometimes evil can see other evil. Her evil was just greater. That doesn't make her a hero just because she notices the faults in someone else.
I didn't say she was a hero. I said she was the hero of her own story. The thing is, Tywin Lannister organised the Red Wedding. Tywin Lannister drummed in to Cersei Lannister how that if you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Tywin was the real true villain of Game of Thrones because he is what brought Cersei Lannister into this world. He is what raised her to believe the things that she believed. The Daleks are created for one purpose only, and that's to kill. All emotions have been removed except hate. They are the representation that even the writer himself put in his notes, that they are a representation of the greatest evil the real world has ever known, and that is the Nazis. Here's some of the acts of evil the Daleks have carried out over the years. In 2163, well, as they have carried out, they will carry out. In 2063, they invaded Earth, wiped out half of humanity, and enslaved the rest. On numerous occasions, they've used time travel to try and unravel existence itself. They created a weapon that would destroy every living thing. In fact, would destroy all of reality, leaving Daleks as the only life form. Throughout their existence, Daleks have tried to conquer the universe and eradicate all life. They are the embodiment of evil and hatred, and they have succeeded. The only reason their success has been undone is because of the Doctor manipulating time and changing time to try and stop them.
Tywin Lannister never told Cersei to engage in having sexual relations with her brother so that she could have a perfected family lineage. He never drove that into her. He never drove into her to commit acts of war against the city that she was, quote unquote, sworn to protect in King's Landing. She was evil on her own, regardless of how much of a tyrant her father may or may not have been. And basically what you're describing with the Daleks, what's the difference between them and the Cylons or any other entity that is evil in a sci-fi story. It's a mindless horde that moves on and gives our heroes something to physically fight against. What Cersei gives all of the heroes in that show is someone, yes, they're going to physically fight against her forces, but that mental side of it too. She's truly evil, playing a mental game on top of it, and she is the evil, not a group of people. Cersei is.
And that is going to be time on the 5 minutes. We are each going to have a 1 minute closing. Joe, you're going to be up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
What sets the Dalek apart from everything else, not just the fact that they did it first, but the fact is, because people can emulate when you do it first, but the difference is you can do it better, and you can do it for 60 straight years. You need the true villain. A true villain shows us our true destructive nature, shows the human race's true destructive nature, and encourages us to be better. That is the mark for true villain. We need to ask ourselves, what makes a true villain? It's someone who you can hate. When you examine their motives and actions, you still hate them. The Daleks are only motivated by their hate and their belief that they are superior to others. Cersei's motivations, when you examine them, the idea of her as a villain falls apart. She becomes a victim of the prophecy, a victim of the Game of Thrones, a victim of a patriarchal society, a person who made mistakes and did what she did to protect her family and those she truly cared about. A villain all depends on whose side you're on, and there are plenty of reasons to take Cersei's side. There are plenty of people on Cersei's side, but the only way to be on the Dalek side is to be one of them. If you're not, you're dead. When it comes to the Daleks, you see a race of creatures who only change themselves to become better killers. Who only did what they did because of irrational hate.
And that's going to be time on the closing. We're going to go ahead and switch over to Ethan. 1 minute starts when you begin speaking.
You wouldn't say the stormtroopers are the most evil people of all time. You would say it's either Darth Vader or the Emperor. Why? Because a group of people, just mindless soldiers, don't strike that definition of evil in you. A person who is truly evil does. That's what Cersei Lannister is. And if you want to know how evil she is, the two people who she should be closest with, her brothers, who she's very close with Jaime in a lot of very concerning ways, both turned on her because of how evil she is, because she cannot contain the hate that is inside of her. It drives these people away. Both of them ended up becoming great leaders in the forces against her because they knew they had to cut down the evil that she was bringing to the world, that she would be the worst outcome for the world as a whole if she were to win that game. Being a victim in some ways does not justify being evil in every way. And we see how the people around her react. She did not have people on her side. Anybody that saw what was inside of her was ready to fight her at a moment's notice. Why? Because she was truly insane. The only person that stayed loyal to her was a zombie in the mountain.
And that's going to be time on the closings for another great. Judges, let me know when you guys are ready. I feel like this is another great question to have as a debate, because I feel like when we look at the history of television shows, Game of Thrones, despite being very recent, and Doctor Who, despite being around for a very long time, I feel like are two of the most lore-rich shows that we have on television at any point in time. And I feel like there are a lot of different angles you could approach both these shows and pit them against each other in a good fight. And this is just simply one of them. As JB3 is ready to go. Andrea's ready. Kevin, ready?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with Kevin first this time. Who is your vote going to in this round and why?
This was my favorite one so far. I had a hard time deciding, but going off of the longevity thing with the Daleks is a great point. But I agree with Ethan that Cersei is the epitome of evil. She's super manipulative. She from episode 1 where she entices Jaime to push Bran out the window. She burns the city with wildfire. He just made so many good points, even in the closing about the stormtroopers are not, you wouldn't consider them the main villain. And the only loyal person at the end for Cersei was the zombie mountain. So my point is going to go to Ethan.
All right, and so with that, we'll go ahead and go to JB3. Where's your vote going?
Yeah, this was, man, as soon as I heard the question, you hear that question and you're like, wow, what's going to happen? And both competitors brought it. The guy who got my point, I'll say this. The reason, they both brought their examples, but I felt like there was something that was kind of one-sided, and that's I felt like I was in Westeros. we were talking a lot about Game of Thrones, and that's where all the examples, came, and especially how the Daleks are mindless and they can be compared to other entities. But Cersei is, so unique in all the examples, from how she started from the beginning to the end is straight evil. All the things that, Kevin was talking about that was mentioned. She killed thousands, incest, to be blunt, just so many different things. So with all that, Ethan got my point.
All right, and so with that, Ethan does get the 2 votes from this round. We're going to go ahead and give him the point there. So he started off 2-0, but he comes back, and now we move on to the final question. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the final question. And as I said with the last one, this question is also a very broad question, a lot of different options and avenues to go with this one. But what would we expect from a title match? Nothing less. The question is, what is the greatest TV cop comedy show? And for this one, Joe is going to go first as we head into our title deciding round. Guys, remember, if you would like to use it, you do still have your extensions. Joe, your 1.5 minutes begins when you start speaking.
To be a great comedy show, you need a lot of things. A solid cast, well-written characters, good jokes, good long-running gags, stories that keep the viewer engaged. To be a great cop show, you need a lot of things. You need interesting cases, complex criminals, the ability to tackle the tougher subjects, the tougher conversations in society. I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine ticks all of these boxes. The cast speaks for themselves. Every character has a background, which becomes more and more fleshed out as the show goes on. Great cold opens, great visual gags, great spoken gags, long-running jokes like Halloween heist, Doug Judy. Everything, Holt's robotic-like manner. We've seen investigations that grip us, like Sterling K. Brown's Philip Davidson, which is just a fantastic box episode. We've seen them tackle issues like racism and the Me Too movement in a way that feels like they understand the issue rather than they're just pandering to it. I think across the board, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a fantastic show. It's funny, it's relevant, it is engaging. The characters, the jokes, the stories, everything about that show makes it the best TV cop comedy. And I'll concede my time.
All right, and so with that, we'll go ahead and move on to Ethan. Your 1 minute opening starts when you begin speaking.
So for me, what I wanted when I answered this question was a show that did envelop both parts of this, the cop and the comedy. And for me, that show was Psych. What Psych gives you on the comedy side of things is such great chemistry between the main characters, James Roday and Dule Hill, and just a chemistry that, yes, other shows have good chemistry between the leads, but what these guys had made you feel like they were best friends on and off camera. You felt that you felt the true friendships that you had with your best friend coming on to the screen, and the comedy just flowed so easily between them, and then flowed into the rest of the cast that was on the show. And from the cop side of it, it wasn't just a typical procedural, we're in a precinct, we're going to solve a crime, blah, blah, blah. It gave us this new spin on the cop show. This guy who had a police officer father who he had seen this growing up his whole life, and he's able to convince people that he's a psychic, right? But it's really just his ability to notice the smallest details that everyone else misses. And that's not something we've seen before, is this outside looking in perspective on the cop show. They are still a part of the police. They are still a part of this. It is a cop show in and of itself, but it's this new take on it while also being so hysterical because of the chemistry of the character. So for me, the answer to this was Psych, and I'll concede the rest of my time.
All right, and with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the main debate. We have the final 5 minutes on the clock. Time starts when the first person speaks. Good luck, guys.
Psych is not a great show. It's poorly written, poorly acted, and is kept alive by the fact that it has a premise that is just unique enough to be considered interesting. All right, the investigations are basic. The humor is incredibly predictable. Brooklyn Nine-Nine shines. It takes its comedy from all sides. The ineptitude of some of the cops, the stupidity of ignorant members of the general public, but more importantly, the humor grows as you come to know these characters. It's humor that rewards you for watching the show. But you can also fall in love with it and get and laugh at it if you're a fresh viewer, and that is what makes it stand apart.
At the end of the day, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is an extended Saturday Night Live sketch in the type of comedy that it is. And to say that Psych is a poorly written, poorly received show, it was so poor in and of itself that it lasted for 8 seasons, and then they brought it back twice for 2 separate on-air movies because the fandom is so big, because the movement, because people wanted it so badly, and they're talking about making a third. So to say that it's just a bad show, it's pretty hard to just be a bad show and bring that out. And the comedy, while it is different than Brooklyn Nine-Nine, doesn't mean that it's predictable. It's just more real-life situations. It's not this over-the-top insanity that Brooklyn Nine-Nine brings, which at times, for me, takes it away from the cop side of it. Psych being more grounded in reality, they're able to better envelop the cop side of the show. I almost forget that I'm watching a cop show when I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine because it leans into slapstick almost at times. It's a great comedy, but it doesn't bring up that cop side enough for me because it focuses too much on the comedy. Psych does a better job of balancing the 2 parts of this question.
No, the struggle with Psych is to get into the show, and it takes an incredible leap of faith. You have to actually really believe that every single cop in the show is a moron and gullible enough to not only miss everything in the investigation that's key to solving it, but also to believe that Sean is a psychic in the first place. All right, if you make that, and even if you make that leap, the reward is a lot of predictable humor and quick resolutions. You talk about its longevity. Well, 2.5 Men went for 14 seasons. Big Bang Theory went for a lot of seasons, and they're not great comedies by any stretch of the imagination. You know, Sean is the smartest guy in the room in Psych, and every time he's the smartest guy in the room every time, and it gets tired quickly. Jake is the main character of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but he's not the person to solve every case every time. It does focus on the investigations. There's been box episodes that are purely about investigations. There have been side investigations. There have been personal issues that take place within the investigation. It does have that cop show, but it's also grounded in the characters. It's a show that it shows that it takes teamwork and it takes various different levels of understanding and intelligence to be a good cop. And for that reason, you can buy these characters and understand why they are a team. And the humor that breeds is so enjoyable. That's why you want to go back every week.
Asking someone to take a leap of faith to be inside of a show is what every single show asks you when it sets up a premise outside of this is a true story. If they're adding some element to the story, it's asking you to take a leap of faith and just be engrossed in the show. We already talked about Scrubs tonight, right? So Scrubs asks you to believe that all of this insanity can take place in a hospital. Why do we do it? Because we want to see what happens every episode. So to say that the show is less because you have to take the leap of faith that he is so good at what he does and noticing details takes it down a notch, that's just the premise they're offering you. You can take it or you can leave it. My issue with the investigations and the premise itself of Brooklyn Nine-Nine is that the cop side of it almost doesn't matter to the show. It's an avenue for the comedy, whereas the storylines, the through lines, some of the reoccurring characters, some of the overall drama that does take place on the other side, the cop side of Psych, is actually a through line for the entire show versus every week there is going to be an investigation, but really what we want is Andy Samberg to make you laugh, and then we'll move on to the next episode.
It's not just Andy Samberg makes stuff. That cast is incredibly strong. You say the comedy comes from the situation. It's a sitcom. It's a situation comedy. You know, you talk a bit about Scrubs just a second. The AMA called Scrubs the most realistic medical TV show on television. And to be honest, if I want to watch a comedy where the 2 leads have great chemistry, I will watch Scrubs. The thing is, it's not just a comedy. You know, it's not afraid to tackle those tough subjects. We've seen it. You know, one of its main characters, Sergeant Terry Jeffords, is subject to racial profiling. And by the end of the episode, it's not just a simple solution of, well, that cop was racist and we fired him. It goes deeper and it explores the actions. You know, you may not want to see cops goofing off, but unfortunately, when you're in the police, you know, there is a lot of downtime. You're waiting for lawyers to turn up. You're waiting for decisions to be made by district attorneys and stuff. They are going to goof around sometimes. They have to pass the time while they're waiting for things to happen. You can't go off and have a new investigation while you're still trying to solve the other one. You know, these take hours. So yeah, there's going to be fire extinguisher races. You know, that's just to pass the time. You may want to see something different, but that's the reality.
I mean, if you want to talk about a leap of faith, there is no way that Peralta would ever actually be.
And that's going to be time on our main round for that battle. We're going to go ahead and move on to the final 1 minute closing. Ethan, you're up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Can I use my extra minute?
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and go to the 2 minute closing. Time starts when you speak.
So here's the thing. The question itself was the greatest TV cop comedy show of all time. Is Brooklyn Nine-Nine hilarious? In its own way, yes. But as I said before, at times it leans into the slapstick. It becomes in and of itself a Saturday Night Live sketch, and it forgets the cop element of the show. There is nothing about what takes place in those investigations that pulls me into a cop drama, that brings me into that cop side that I want that balance to have. It goes over the top with the comedy and forgets about the cop side of the show. And that's what I need to answer this question. Psych balances it so much better. The comedy comes from the chemistry of the two leads that brings us together, and then their chemistry flows into the rest of the cast. But then we also see that dramatic cop side of things. They're dealing with these real life issues, these real cases that they can dive into, that he can use his ability to notice details to actually make the world around him a better place. And that is what a cop show is about, is making the world around them a better place, because they have this responsibility to do so. And the only way he knows how is to do things the way that he does, and he's going to use that. That's the premise of the show, to get involved in any way that he can. And we see the relationship building between him and his best friend, him and his father, the other characters in the show that don't want him around. Not every cop is just gullible and says, yeah, let's bring him on. People push back against him, but he keeps fighting, keeps moving forward, which is another thing that we see in cop shows time and time again. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep moving forward to do what is right. He does that time and again because he feels the need to do so. So what Psych does better, to answer this question, is balance the cop and the comedy. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, while funny, is a slapstick comedy where the main characters happen to be police officers. And I'll concede the rest of my time.
All right, and so with that, we're going to go ahead and move over to Joe for his 1 minute closing.
I would also like to use my extension. Might as well.
I figured. All right, 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you speak.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the greatest cop comedy. It's funnier than Psych. The story and the characters are more believable than those on Psych. Psych suffers from having an interesting premise, but nothing more to back it up. You say it's a comedy where they just happen to be cops. Well, it's a situation comedy. It's a sitcom. The comedy comes from the situation they're in. You said that it's like a Saturday Night Live sketch, but your cops are right out of Super Troopers. They're so useless. The things that Brooklyn Nine-Nine has tackled in the years it has been on, serial killers, corruption, witness protection, racism, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and these things weren't swept under the carpet at the end of the episode. Oh, that's that one solved. It's not. It makes you have that conversation. It brings that, but it also has that comedy. It has everything that you want from a good comedy, as well as being a good cop show. The cop show has good investigations. It has a good chemistry, not just between the two main characters, because it's about the team. The team all gel together, and they all have their own. They're going off and do this investigation, or this person's going to do this investigation, or this investigation is going on. It has all of those things. The difference where Brooklyn Nine-Nine shines is because it has everything that a comedy will have. It has the small gags, the cold opens, visual gags, spoken gags, long-running jokes. Like I said, like I mentioned before, the Halloween heists, Charles and his sort of his nature to sort of be more cheerful and positive outlook. You say that Jake Peralta would never make a cop. Trust me, I work with plenty of cops who are goofballs. It's the way it is. It's just there's a dynamic. There's lots of different people. It's a big organization, and there are going to be different people. And every single character in that show is not a caricature. They represent something. They all have their own stories. They all have their own lives. They all have their own backgrounds, their own histories, everything about it. And the comedy not only comes from that, but it comes from the situation as well. You can watch it and still laugh, having watched it for years, or you can come in new and watch it afresh and still find the comedy. And it's not just a comedy where they happen to be cops. It's the humor comes from the things that the cops face.
And that's going to be time on that. So we're going to go ahead and bring all of our judges back in. We're going to leave the competitors here as well while our judges finish up and make the decision. As should be said, for pretty much every match, both competitors gave it their all and gave a great fight no matter who wins at the end of this. No one should be felt let down. But at the end of the day, only one person can win. Judges, let me know when you are finished up. Kevin is ready. Andrea is ready. And the man we are going to start with this time, JB3, is ready. Go ahead and let us know who you picked.
Oh, wow. Man, what a debate. I'm not even just this question, every single question. As far as this question goes, oh my golly. I mean, how could you pick between those two shows? But we had two great debaters to make us decide and win us over. And after all is said and done, this was probably now the closest one I've seen in this match. But The ending, both use their extensions, but the ending is what got me, and the person that got my point just talked about more. He rebutted all the negatives and talked about how it was more diverse and how they tackled real issues. So Joe took my point for this round, but just by a hair.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to Andrea for the second vote.
Yeah, this is actually one of the closest matches I've ever judged. And it all came down to me also in the closing arguments. As what my fellow judge has said, it came down to the fact that this person was able to really counter a lot of the things that were said about his show in the closing arguments. So in this case, I'm gonna give my point also to Joe.
And with that, the winner tonight here and the still continued undefeated reigning champ is Joe Hot Fuzz Farrelly, taking the victory. Go ahead, guys. Both of you can breathe for a second. Before we get to our competitors, I would just like to very briefly thank our judges. Guys, do you want to plug yourselves real quick before I take you out and talk to these two?
Can I just hear where Kevin would give his point?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my point was going to go to Joe as well. The bring up all the like the Halloween heist, the Oolong Slayer, but also having the serious stuff like Terry being the subject of racial profiling. Psych, I love Psych, but I just don't feel that Ethan had enough to rebut that. So my point was going to go for Joe.
All right, so judges, do you guys want to plug yourselves real quick before I take you out and speak to the competitors?
Sure.
We'll start with Kevin.
Go ahead, JP. Go ahead, JP3.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Man, I'm still kind of shaking over this debate too. But if you guys want to check me out, you can go over to Nerd Entertainment Network. You can go to check out Combat Wrestling Trivia. I run that league, and we got a lot of matches coming out. We've had matches coming, but we have more at a more consistent rate, and it's going to be a new style. And just keep a lookout, Nerd Entertainment Network. Also Thursday nights over at TMG, here at TMG. Suplex City Chats with Matty G and Jacob and the Villain. Check us out, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, Thursday nights.
I'd just like to shout out, I just played my first match over at the Nerd Entertainment Network. Get yourselves on there. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and we'll move on to Andrea.
You guys, you can find me everywhere as a judge here on TMG Entertainment, but also I'm a competitor in the Inner Geekdom in several leagues, so watch me on those. And I'll see you guys. If you're gonna have a match against me, get ready.
All right, and Kevin, real quick.
I just wanted to plug, I am the new Inner Geekdom commissioner. If you are interested in playing in Inner Geekdom, we are starting a road to the championship. We do have a vacant championship at the moment. So the first two players to get 3 wins will get get a title shot. Also, I wanted to congratulate both of these competitors. Joe, congratulations. Ethan, great job. And we'll catch you next time.
All right, so we'll go ahead and speak to the competitors real quick. I'm going to go ahead and start with Ethan. We'll get to Joe in just a second. Ethan, obviously, it's never fun to lose, but this is for sure a hard-fought battle, a hard-fought title match. How are you feeling after that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great match. I knew going into it that the biggest thing for me would be to not let it get to that final question because, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is just such a great show, such a revered show. So I was going to have to do a lot of work to not let it get that far. But, I was happy to be here, and I'll be ready to do it again.
All right, and then with the record now, you still have a record of 3-2 with 2 knockouts in this division, so still a very, very positive record. Just to probably another win or two could get you back up towards the top. Is there anyone you can think of who has a close ranking to you that you would like to try and see in the near future?
No, I mean, whoever's there. I mean, I just enjoy doing it. I'll play and hopefully see Joe again.
All right. Great attitude tonight. Great match once again, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. But we'll flip over to our reigning, continuing, undefeated champion. He's loving all the compliments right now. Joe Farrelly, how you feeling, man?
Exhausted. Ethan, talk about having someone on the ropes. My God, I was keeping track of where the judges went, and with those first 4 questions, it was 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. So any variation, any little point that changes the judge's mind, and it completely flips the score on most, especially those first 2 questions. You know, if he gets a point, then and it's 3-1, and I'm not the champion anymore. Ethan really brought it, but it came down to a final question, and I seem to just get lucky that it's about cops.
Of course. So now with this, I mean, I don't know what the added up score is over all of the leagues you've competed in, but you currently in this league have a record of 5-0. You continue to be the champion. You by far have the best record of anyone. Is there anyone you could think of that would make a great new contender, or are you just waiting to see who comes out on top?
New contenders, I'm waiting to see who comes out on top. In terms of TV fights, I definitely will go back to one of the closest matches I've ever had, which was against Ryan Payne. He was absolutely phenomenal in that match. And again, it came down to the speed round, and I managed to get my answer in first. Again, anything like that, being first to get there. That's sometimes all it comes down to. So yeah, Ryan Payne definitely I'd like to play again, because that was a really good match. But I could easily be. There's no doubt that I'll be playing Ethan again at some point. I think it's now across the divisions. It's 7-1. 2-0 movie battleground, and 0-1 in nerd fights. So winning this is good because it means that I can focus on movie battleground and not having to focus on 2 divisions. I have to focus on 1.
All right. And so with that, the smiling champ will go ahead and bring Ethan back in. Ethan, anything you want to plug before we end this?
No, I mean, it was awesome. Joe is definitely the best match that I've had. The hardest I've had to prepare for one, and I mean, it lived up to the hype. We took it 5 rounds, so.
So what people want to see.
All right, and then Joe, anything you want to plug?
Not much. You can find me over Twitter at Joe Ed Farrelly. That's where I am. I'm pretty much on every division trivia and debates that I can try and find myself in. Looking forward to. And also go over to the Movie Trivia Face Off YouTube page. I'm on a few of their reactions to current Schmoedown matches, which are a lot of fun. And I'm currently preparing for the Star Wars final between Cabrera and Dimolanta, because David Garcia is also reacting to that. So I like to make sure I can keep at least neck and neck with him.
All right. And so to close out the video, you guys can find me on Instagram at Aaron T. Knoll. Hi, how'd that happen?
I have the power.
That is absolutely fair. Please make me your bitch, Jacob. Go ahead.
Exactly, because that's the way this goes. As the commissioner of late TV fights, yes, Aaron, I give you a little bit of control, but you don't get to close out this stream. Joe, congratulations on a hard-fought win. Ethan, great job to you too. I was kind of thinking Ethan would pull it out, and he almost did. But I definitely look forward to seeing this next season of late TV fights, how everything goes. Getting a new contender to take on Hot Fuzz and take him down, because America likes beating the British.
I watch Hamilton. Jonathan Groff's the best because he's King George.
Yeah. So, in closing, Aaron, I will let you close, but I do want to add one thing. Everyone keep a lookout on the TMG Facebook page. I'm going to have some news about late TV fights coming up, because I have my 5-round match with Ryan Payne coming up to fix that situation that happened. And then I will have some news that kind of keeps that situation from ever happening again. And then we will get into late TV fights. So keep your eyes peeled for that piece of information coming out. And then also, hey, if there's anyone here watching, man, that sounds fun, yelling about television and television-inspired things. Hit me up. I will get you a match. Don't worry, I will not put you up against Ethan in your first match. I would not do that to you. I do have a couple people though that I would throw you at to get your feet nice and wet for late TV fights. But with that, Aaron, take it away.
All right, you guys can find me on Instagram at Aaron T. Knoll. Shout out to the commissioner of this league, Jacob. Shout out to the champ, Joe. And shout out to the great contender, Ethan. Please continue to watch everything happening on TMG, whether it be After Dark and the continuous slew of guests we're able to get, whether it be the different debate leagues that we have, whether it be the event that this is a part of, our Summertime Madness event, a couple of huge matches happening right now. For everyone here at TMG and the competitors, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.